excited about what God's been doing it's 40 days to 40. So every day we have been having different people in here, either live or they've been sending me files. And today I'm so excited because I have people in here that I've known like forever. I feel like you've always been part of my life. So introduce yourself and tell us, if you want to tell us what church you go to or anything like that.
My name is Debbie Zaleski, and I go to Calvary Christian Center.
My name is Debbie Nichols, and I go to Calvary Christian Center as well.
And I go to Calvary. Isn't that cute? So do you have a special, either one of you, memory about maybe my parents, me, WAPN, or anything like that?
Well, I met your parents, this is going to date me, but in 1988.
So 3 years after we started.
Right. I worked for a major company in town, and I had been listening to the station because, this is a personal story, I was divorced, not by my own choosing, and left with 3 children, 3 little children. And so I was very, very despondent, in despair, sad, and I found WAPN. And I had gotten saved not long before that in 1986. And WAPN was literally my lifeline. It was literally my lifeline. I lived on WAPN.
I love that.
Listening to the music, listening to Earlene, listening to Imogene Strickland's voice, the voices that were on here, right. And then, as I got stronger in the Lord, I happened to call the station one day and speak to Earlene. And the next thing I knew, they were in my office.
Mm-hmm. That's how my parents were. They just showed up.
They were just there. Mm-hmm. And so it just from then on, I was just close to them like everyone else because we were all special.
Mm-hmm. I know, and I love it when people say their special moment about my parents because people didn't realize they really meant it. They didn't just say those words, they really meant that they were special.
Absolutely.
And then through the years, you've done different things with WAPN.
Yes.
What have you done through the years with WAPN?
Excuse me. As soon as I go to talk. Well, I've been on prayer line with Imogene Strickland. I've done interviews. I have facilitated radio programming.
I was waiting for that one. Oh my goodness! And that was when there was mini discs.
My famous books, right?
It's funny because I do books like you still because of what she taught me. No, she did. She taught me about these books and putting them all in organization and stuff. And I scrapbook also. Well, I did. And I haven't scrapbooked in like 20 years. This is a funny story. And God told me a couple weeks ago to give it all away. I'm not using it. It's taking up place. Why am I not blessing somebody? So I'm going to bless a Christian scrapbooking group. And it's funny, as I was going through it yesterday, and there was a trillion emotions, because I'm seeing all these pictures and memories and different things. My books were set up like yours. All my scrapbooking stuff was in these little pouches all over. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I learned this from you. Isn't that funny, though, that God will send somebody in your life and you pick up a habit and it's always with you?
Yeah, I don't even know how I came across doing that. Well, I was always a binder person.
Yes.
Debbie picked up my binder.
And I am now, too.
See what she did to us?
All of Pastor Rayleigh's trips are in binders, all organized, and that's...
So you're scrapbooking for Pastor Rayleigh.
Yes, I am.
That's funny because, I made it through giving away the paper and the, scissors and all that. But my husband goes, are you going to give away, like, all the pieces of paper? And I said, I don't know. Because they'll say where we went or when we went. And those are important to me. And so maybe I should put those in a binder where it would be organized. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get another binder going.
Yeah, but it would be in there, like when we went to where we went to. See how God sent you guys to help me today? Now, are you a listener? Are you been
Oh,
part?
yes.
Okay, tell
yes,
us
years
something.
ago, I started going to Calvary 40 years ago back on US 1. And your parents were they were generals of the faith.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom was so beautiful with her long blonde hair, with her braid and everything. So sweet. And like Debbie said, listened to Emma Jean and Pastor Fussell. And just it was a daily life, because back then I was a stay-at-home mom, and it was always on at the house, and it really was a lifeline to me as well.
I love that, the word lifeline, and I know what that means, but what would you say a lifeline really means to you?
Something that we share. We share in the faith, and something very encouraging, and that encourages my life and makes me want to keep going.
And see, I look at it that aren't we blessed that we're a community radio station that's right here. Now, I know we reach the world, but I love that we can go to Calvary to whatever we're doing, or go to Ron Fussel's church, or, or call into prayer line and get encouraged. And, you meet the people out in public, and it's so interesting when you meet them. I had a vision of this one man that used to be on years ago, Steve Kennedy. And
yes.
I loved his worship.
Yes.
That man had the best worship ever. But what I thought he looked like, and then when I met him, were two different things. And we used to laugh and laugh and laugh about that. He would go, I know I have a radio person voice, but when you see me in public, you would never know that. Just like Pastor Rayleigh, nobody ever knew what he looked like or anything,
Yes.
because, and I get more calls about Pastor Rayleigh and wanting to know. And I'm like, well, just go to the church, because it's a different experience once you go. I'm thankful that we have the people in the area on, so that you can listen to them and see if they're like your style or whatever before you actually walk in the door. Because it's intimidating walking into the door, I think. Don't you feel that way? Mm-hmm. Now, when they were back on US 1, do you know how my mom met Imogene?
How?
I don't.
See, I get to share something cool with you. They broke down in the parking lot and needed a jump start. And nobody was helping them. And Imogene came out, and she had been praying for a special friend, and my mom had been praying for a special friend. And they didn't know each other. And she came out, and she goes, are you having a problem? Or however she said it, was probably way sweeter than that. And my dad said, we need a jump start. She says, well, I have jumper cables. Now, my dad did not know how to use jumper cables, just so we know. Imogene did. And she jump-started my parents, but I know that she was there for my mom, because my mom needed a strong woman in her life to pray with. And when you're in the ministry, everybody, and I know I'm not going to say this like it's weird or anything, but we need somebody that we can just vent on. Like I always tell ministries, they can't quit on Monday. Because we all went to church, and the air wasn't right, or there was too many people, or I didn't like that outfit, or I didn't like what he said today, or usually that's because it was for you, or whatever the item is, and the pastors just get dumped and dumped and dumped on. So I always say you can't quit on Monday, because they get dumped on. They all need somebody they can come in here and just be raw and real. Mm-hmm. And we've always tried to be that about WAPN. Things have changed over the 40 years, and I've got rid of all the music that used to play and put more upbeat music on. But I do think you have to change also for good things. Mm-hmm. And right now there's such a movement with the young people.
Yes.
I mean, the young people right now are on fire, and I just love it. And don't you feel Calvary has evolved that way over the 40 years also? Mm-hmm. And tell us some things about Calvary, because they're on the air twice a day. They're on at 1 o'clock right after prayer line, and then they're on in the evening. What are things about Calvary that you feel have been part of this community?
Oh, the outreach for sure. Mm-hmm. Pastor Jamie and Tanisha and their team, they just do such a wonderful job with the food drops. And I see you out there helping. And Yvonne.
That's one of my favorite things.
Yes. And just loving, they were at the Speedway this weekend, and just loving on the people and let them know that Jesus is real. And we love, Calvary loves everybody, mm-hmm. and we want to help everybody.
And they do, and that's and it's funny because how Calvary became part of WAPN is my dad wanted him on the radio, and I was so mad at my dad. Sorry, Dad, but because my dad was a visionary. Debbie knows this about him, and he really didn't know how it was going to happen here. Okay, he was really good at telling you he wanted, but he wasn't good at doing it here, okay? He'd always been in radio, but he was never on the board. He didn't even know how to run the board, okay? So he loved Jim. And, they were struggling. It was real. The new building, there was leaks everywhere, and there was trouble trying to pay Florida Power and Light. It was a hard season. It was. And my dad went and had a meeting with him and said, well, you're going to go on Monday through Friday right after prayer line. Now, that sounds really great and really easy. But if you haven't recorded everything, which Debbie and I know was a pain because there wasn't a lot of things recorded. And then you can't play the same show every week, right? Uh-huh. And then back then was cassettes. Okay? There was no timing on cassettes. So that meant when it went on the air, somebody had to sit right here and listen so they would know when to put the music on. Do you follow what I'm saying? Because a cassette doesn't tell you 38 minutes or whatever. When Debbie and I got mini disc and it would tell us exactly how many seconds, we thought we were the coolest thing ever. Yeah. We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
And so my dad said, so what you're going to do is Sunday service is going to play on Monday. And then Wednesday night back in the day would play on Thursday. And he just thought that was easy. How are you going to get the service? There wasn't internet. Just think, we did not have internet when Pastor Rayleigh started on WAPN.
No, we were driving here on Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
Yep, and
dropping it in the
mail drop.
Yes.
Yep. And Evan, remember, he would fly up here on Sundays and try
God
to get it here.
bless Evan.
Oh, I miss Evan. I miss Evan. But he would come here, and I would see his little car flying up here, and he'd be handing me something to put, and it had to happen. Yeah. So that meant every Monday, no matter what, I was here to make that happen, and every Thursday. Well, like I said, it was a great idea, and I really appreciate that my dad did it, but he had no execution on it. And to this day, it's probably the one thing that I'm stubborn about. Wouldn't you say, Deb? I am stubborn about that one anyway. That whatever played on Sunday, whatever he preached on Sunday has to be on a Monday. Yeah. And I am like a crazy girl if the file's not here. Now, praise the Lord, we have internet now. We have technology now, and we can send a file through all that. As long as the internet's working.
Yeah.
And as long as, and people don't realize that if it doesn't all work, we can't do it. We think it's like we just depend on it so much. So when I walk in at 4 o'clock on Monday morning, I look and make sure now, Jonathan, and make sure that it's up there, But if it's not, I'm frantic because I got to make it happen, and you have to upload it so you don't crash the system. See, back in the day, you couldn't crash the system because I was live. I was sitting right here manually doing it. Well, now that you put it in a hard drive and make sure it files, goes off, you have to have it in so many hours before so that when you update the system, it doesn't crash. But my journey with Calvary has been very interesting and very thankful. Mm-hmm. I've met the most amazing people at Calvary. The most amazing. I cannot imagine my life without Calvary.
Exactly.
And I think about, we've cried together, we've rejoiced together, we've held each other up. If I can not see Debbie forever, and it was just like seeing you yesterday.
I remember when your dad passed, and we had the service at the church, and you were sitting at the end of an aisle, and the only way I could get to you was to go get a chair. I got a chair and sat it next to you, and I remember that.
No, and that was you just did it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, didn't worry about what were people going to say, or it was going to cause it just got done.
Yeah.
And that you both are women that just get it done, no matter what it is. I've seen you both doing stuff, and I'm thinking, how do they do that? How do they keep that going?
That's the way we look at you too.
Yeah.
Well, so we got 3 strong women in here that love to get it done. And I think about my dad's service. I've been thinking a lot with the 40th year about my mom and my dad. I have the good and the bad of both of them. My husband says, I have the stubbornness of my dad, but also I do have his vision. Yes, the carpet's changed. Yes, this has changed or whatever. But I've always kept my dad's vision as far as the one. If one person's life gets changed on WAPN,
that's right.
That's all that matters. if you have a church of 1 or you have a church of 5,000, you get treated the same here at WAPN. You know, there's not favoritism. My dad didn't see denomination. My dad never saw color. My dad never saw any of those kinds of things. And he believed in prayer. You know, like back in the day, my mom was prayer line.
She was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that back in the day, there wasn't like call 40. It was my mom. You called and you got my mom. There wasn't like live calls and all those things, you know. And in her latter days, when she was dying, we had 13 days. Huh, Deb? We did some cool things in those 13 days, huh?
I thought about that too.
I know. But if I wouldn't have had the app, if we wouldn't have had Midnight Prayer Line, she wouldn't have got all that at the end. Because she would turn on the app and put it underneath her pillow and listen and pray along with people every night. And she used to say her latter days were her better days. And it wasn't that my dad wasn't there and they were a wonderfully married couple forever. They were never with ever anybody else. But she realized their journey had been done for WAPN. You know, and they were handing it over to me. And it was very intimidating. I had never been on the air. I'd never been behind this mic. I was making them look good, you know, or helping that pastor, helping that. But I didn't have a show. I didn't interview people. I didn't do any of those things. And so I always tell everybody, I'm like the Joel Osteen. You know, I was the production crew, and then my dad died, and I had to become this. But God has helped me through every single bit of it. What was your memory of the last few days of my mom? I want to hear which one you're going to say. You can say it over there.
When Imogene and I came, I called her and I said, we need to go take communion with Earlene.
Wasn't it an experience?
Yeah.
I'll never forget that as long as I live.
I won't
Because
either.
my mom really didn't understand at that point. And there's nothing wrong with that. I
But
mean,
she did it.
she did it. But I mean, it was at the last, it was really close to the end.
It was.
But a lot of people don't realize why we were doing that. I felt like I was hovering above it.
That's what you said.
And I'll never forget that moment, because when hospice told us, you know, about my mom, and they tried to prepare me about how it was going to happen, you know, and I appreciate that what they said was what they thought. But they told me, your mom knows heaven. She knows where she's going. But she's struggling with leaving you girls behind and your brother. So you're going to have to, she's going to go in and out. And you either get to go in with her or you get to struggle. So I thought, what do you mean go to heaven with her? And you know, I was really dealing with it. And God said, just go along. And during those 13 days, we allowed whosoever to come to the house. And my sisters were mad. They're like, she's dying and we're not partying. And I said, no, my mom needed to be celebrated. She was always Gordy's wife. She never felt loved. Not by my dad or us kids, but she always thought you liked her because she was Gordy's wife. Those 7 years after my dad died, she got to see that she was Earlene Lund and she was loved. And I'm thankful that God allowed that. And then the last 13 days, he allowed everybody to come in and out of the house like a revolving door, which was, hey.
When we were leaving, the Rayleighs were coming
Yeah.
up. Yep.
And it was okay. We weren't going to wear her out. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember she wanted certain music played, and we had a baby timer on her, you know, a monitor, so that I could walk out of the room and I'd hear the same music over and over. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, I'm throwing it out when she dies. And when she died, I threw it all out. And I also remember the night before she died, my dad came. And people go, Shelley. And I go, no, there's angels among us. And my dad came because he knew that she wasn't going to give up. You know, she was going to keep trying. And I remember we had moved her downstairs per hospice. My mother was so mad at us because she said, I don't want to go downstairs.
Yeah, she wanted to stay in her room.
That's always been her and Gordy's room. I thought they wanted to do it so more people could visit. The reason was because when she did die, it would have been harder to get her down the stairs. And they protected me by not telling me that, and I appreciate that. So we set up a whole thing downstairs, and it was perfect. It really was. But when my dad came, of course, it was upstairs. And Yvonne and I were sitting there, and we heard this ruckus going on into an empty room upstairs, right? And we're thinking, what the heck is going on? And I said, well, I'm going to go look. And Yvonne looked at me like, well, I'm not. And I go, come on. I knew my dad was there. I knew the presence of my dad had come for my mom. And I go upstairs, and I just felt he was upset because he couldn't find her, you know. And I said, come on, Dad. And Yvonne looked at me like, okay, whatever. And I could feel him actually, you know, and we got downstairs, and you know what my mom said?
What?
Jesus and Gordy. Jesus and Gordy. That will always be my but God moment. Because I knew that's exactly what was going on. You know, and I think that's why this year's so important to me, the 40, because we've made it. You know, and we've made great relationships. We've helped build lots of churches. We've won many souls to Christ. And no, we're not stopping. But I wanted to just share over the air special things about WAPN.
Yeah.
Do you have any other memories that come to you?
Yeah, a couple that came to me. One was when you mentioned cassette tapes. Every Christmas, they would make a cassette tape of Christmas
I just
music.
found some.
And it was the best.
My dad would spend days and weeks making those, and I found like 4 of them the other day.
And so when I wasn't listening to the radio, I was listening to the cassette tapes that Gordy gave me. And another thing is, Erlene and we actually were in a writing group together.
She loved to journal.
We wrote about, we got our papers graded and everything. We wrote about our life experiences, and we just grew closer that way. But I loved your parents so much.
That's cute that you mentioned the cassettes, because like I just said, I just found them. And then the writing thing, my mother journaled, and I sticky, she journaled. And some days when it's a little overwhelming, because I'm not going to tell you it hasn't been overwhelming, God will say, go get a journal. Now, I don't look at them, and he'll have me grab one. They're upstairs, and I'll grab one, and she'll have wrote something about me that day. When I open it up, it will be a day, and I don't know, but God.
Right.
And it's always something that we were walking through that day. And God helped us walk through it. And see, I wish I could do that.
How precious.
You know, I wish I could journal. I had somebody here talking about what will be my legacy. You know, we always think that, you know, as you're getting older, what will be my legacy? Well, my legacy, I always wanted to be that I was a wonderful wife and a great mom, and I always showed up nanny. You know, those are important to me. And somebody said, Shelley, you don't even know your legacy, do you? And I said, I guess I don't. I thought that was my legacy, you know, or that my kids have all turned out great. My granddaughters and grandsons have turned out. They said, no, that you carried on this vision.
Yes.
You know, when most people would have given up, or most people, I remember she was literally just died. And the funeral home came to get her, and Ron Fessel, oh, I love Ron. Ron would not let them put her in the black bag to leave the house. Now, we were in the other room dealing with hospice, and Ron came in and he says, can I have those sheets? And I looked at him like a deer with the headlights. I'll never forget this. Yeah, like, right now, do we need to deal with the sheets?
Right.
But what he wanted to do was wrap her for my sake. And they wrapped her and brought her out of the house, and I never knew why. I just thought that was nice. They were honoring her. Years later, my grandchildren live in that house. My daughter owned that house. She was left like everybody just thought she was going to get her nails done or something. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't left in a bag.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that, because I don't have any weird feelings going to that house. You know, and I think if he wouldn't have been there to do that, I might have had weird feelings.
Yeah.
But God knows everything.
Yeah.
And he meets us right where we are at.
I'm looking out here at these, you know, new shiny chairs, and I'm remembering the purple.
Oh, yeah.
The purple.
My dad
velvet
loved
chairs.
purple, didn't he? He loved purple. It was really bittersweet when we had a flood here. And I had to replace the flooring and everything. So We had like disco purple carpet in here. I hated that carpet, but my dad's favorite color was purple, and those purple chairs. Well, they got all ruined. And I struggled when we had to pull it up and replace the chairs. I thought, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. But I needed to do it. We did it, and I'm okay now. And isn't that weird how we hold on so much? Like, people might think I'm holding on because I'm doing these memories. I'm not holding on to what I am. I'm appreciating the 40 years.
Yes.
And the people that have been in my life, and the ministries that have been in my life, and the craziness that has been in my life, and the one person that got saved. I have a guy that listens to WAPN, a lifeline for WAPN. Do you know that he knows, he can tell by my voice, and he'll bring me a donut and ice cold milk? Just bring it to me, because he knows I love Boston cream donuts and ice cold milk. And the next thing I know, he'll text me and he'll say, I'm on my way, and he'll bring that to me. Oh. I have a prisoner that sends in 2 postage stamps a month, because that's all he can do.
Mm. That's the other thing, is that this reaches the jails. Mm-hmm. And the testimonies, that's what touches my heart, is, doing those books all the time, and all that we did with them, hearing people say, I came to Jesus because I heard
Daily Rayleigh.
Pastor Rayleigh on the radio.
And it's funny when I get because Dawn, when I was at the women's thing recently, I was sitting with her at eating, and she told me another story of a Daily Rayleigh thing. And it was so funny because she didn't know that day I had really struggled with some stuff. And I walked in there, and I actually was going to cancel just because it had been a day. And she sat down next to us, me and Bonnie, and she started telling me about another testimony. I thought, okay, God, I get it. And a lot have been from the jail and Daily Rayleigh. And, my dad was the one that brought those little radios out there. Now they have different technology.
Sure.
But my dad said, let's bring them radios and donate radios. And he took a whole bunch of little, like Walkmans. You remember the Walkmans back in the day?
Yeah.
And had them on 91.5.
Wow.
And he gave him those. And it's funny because I still think of that. The things that... And so these aren't bad memories or anything, or I'm not stuck in it. I just want people to realize humble beginnings can reach the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want you to know, I know how proud your parents are of you.
Thank you. Your parents loved you.
You have done amazing things with this ministry. I know you're not. I know you're not.
No, but I mean, it's funny because when I think I'm tired and when I think I'm done, something great happens. So I'm looking, I have my eyes open and my ears listening to see what God's up to next. We got 2 minutes. Is there another thing you think about WAPN when you...
Just the speakers, the guests that you've had on, and back in the day, it was for me so encouraging, and just, back, like you said, we didn't have the technology that we have now, and it was very uplifting, and you just think, I can do it. It was just with a prayer line and imaging, and like you said, you had different pastors on there from different denominations, and I love that. That's the church, and that's how it should be. And it was just it meant a lot to me.
And and it's funny because I think people always say to me, "Why do you have Spanish program in the middle of Saturday afternoon?" Because my dad said there's 35% of the community have Spanish. Why not? And I still have it on. Why not?
Yes.
And I try to think of, when I make decisions, I think of how Gordy would handle it, and then I think how Erlene was praying. Because my dad would be making a wild decision, and my mother's eyebrows would be up here going, "Oh God, what is Gordy doing now?" And that keeps me going.
Yeah.
And people like you keep me going. So thank you so much, ladies, for coming today. We could go on for hours, but I appreciate you so much for being here. I love you both so much.
Love you too.
Thank you for being in my life. God bless you.